The Man Everybody Was Afraid of, a Dave Brandstetter mystery. Book 4 in the series. Author Joseph Hansen. Publisher Open Road Integrated Media, New York. Narrator Eric Aust. Chapter 7. The rental car was small. Each crack in the street jarred his spine. He left the bayfront, looking for and finding side streets of stingy stucco cottages, long, unpainted, of dying trees, sheltering rusty house trailers, deep in brown weeds, business streets of corrugated iron sheds, shops that dealt in second-hand ships, tackle, or second-hand clothes, a pawn shop, a shop whose doorway loudspeaker laced the sunny air with rock music and whose dirty windows record albums curled and faded. 2x4s were nailed across the doors of the Keyhole Theater, adult movies, and someone had thrown a rock through the white plastic of the marquee. A leathery old woman in a green transparent sun visor dragged a wire shopping cart filled with sandy, soft drink bottles. A youth with bushy red hair sat with his back against a grape stake fence that enclosed a shrubby green nursery. He was playing a concertina. A girl in a granny dress slept with her head on his shoulder. Beside them leaned a sign in orange marker pen, burglary. A weather-beaten man in a grimy yachting cap clutched a bottle in a paper sack at a round cement table beside a shiny glass and formica hamburger stand that made the neighborhood look even sadder. In a corner, lot across from it, ribbed boat hulls hove up on warping scaffolds. Beyond them, smoke had blackened a storefront. Plywood with spray can graffiti had been nailed over the window holes. Above them, a smoked and blistered sign read, "Underwater Press." Next door, gingham cottage curtains hung behind a window lettered, "Natural Foods Cafe and Bakery." The little car made a U-turn with a briskness that surprised him. He parked it in front of the cafe. A spring bell jingled when he opened the door. Flowers drawn in colored chalk brightened the walls. There was a good smell of baking on the gingham-patterned formica of the squared tables. Lay soiled dishes. Lunch must have been a busy time. Bread was heaped inside an old-fashioned glass showcase at the back of the room. Through the doorway beyond it came a fresh-faced blonde girl wrapped in a big white apron. She looked as merry as the chalk flowers. She seemed cheered to see him. "Can I help you?" "Oh, what's your best bread?" he asked. "The 7 grains, great. Sprouted wheat. That's like you never tasted. And our best seller's carrot bread. See? The orange-colored ones." "I'll have one of those," Dave said, and when she rattled open the slide door and took out the loaf and turned to drop it into a sack, he slipped the pitcher out of its envelope and laid it on the coin-scratched green glass of the countertop. When she saw it, the merriment went out of her. She frowned at the pitcher, frowned at him. He asked, "Ever see that man? Say a week ago Saturday?" "Why?" She turned her head, watched him from the corners of her eyes. "Who are you?" He laid his business card beside the pitcher. She read it without touching it. It didn't make her smile. Dave said, "He had life insurance with us. I need to know who he saw, what he was doing the day he died. He did come in here, didn't he?" "He came in." A young male with a shaved head and little blue wire-framed glasses stood next to the girl. "He was asking questions. Did we know Lester Green? Did we know where Lester Green was?" The girl giggled. "Now you come asking, do we know who he was? The man in the picture, and then somebody will come asking about you." Dave glanced at the window. No police car showed itself on the sun-sad street, but he said, "It's possible," because it was. He asked Blue Glasses, "Did he tell you who he was?" "He didn't want anybody to know. He wore a wig. He Wore those mirror shades you can't see through. The girl smiled wryly. Hippie threads. He doesn't know there aren't any hippies anymore, the boy said. He showed me grass in a plastic folder pouch. Must have been 6, 8 ounces, maybe more. He said to pass the word to my customers. He'd give it all to whoever led him to Lester Green. To Lester Green? For what? Dave wondered. The bread's $1.50, please, the girl said. Dave paid her. She rang the cash register and went into the back. A record began to play quietly from speakers hung in corners. Guitar, a sweet, simple soprano. You can hear the boats go by. You can spend the night forever. 10 years ago, wasn't it? These kids would have been in grammar school. What did it mean to them? Only that there were no hippies anymore. He said he'd heard Lester was out of jail. Blue Glasses brought a yellow molded plastic bin from behind the counter and began to dump into the soiled plates and glasses from the tables. He said Lester used to have good Mexican connections. Laughable. With dealers of marijuana? Lester wouldn't go near it or anybody that had it on them. If he knew they had it, he was very righteous. But he came in here. Dave cocked an eyebrow. He wouldn't have somebody brought him. What did this man call himself? Dave asked. Doc. But that wasn't his name. No, Dave said. Do you know his name? The bin was loaded. The boy carried it, jolting and clinking into the back, saying, over his shoulders, Don't you? Water began to splash hard in what sounded like a metal tub. There was a dusty smell of soap powder. The girl sneezed. Blue Glasses came out with the empty bin. Dave said, So you didn't do what he wanted? Be serious. The boy was at the front tables now, and his voice came back hardened and flattened from the window glass. I could get what Lester got. A fork hit the floor and skittered away. He retrieved it. Wow, it's hard to get used to how different life around here is going to be without Ben Orton. There's a son, Dave said. Blue Glasses snorted. Without his old man to tell him, he won't wipe his ass. He blinked at Dave. I wonder what it feels like having everybody scared to death of you. Except Anita, Dave said. Yeah, well, Anita. The boy dumped more dishes into the bin, frowning to himself. She wasn't exactly bright either, though. Thought she could get away with anything. It didn't cost her. It cost Lester and other people. Let me show you something. He left the bin on a table and opened the jingle bell door. He went out into the sunlight. Dave followed. The boy pointed at the smoke-blackened storefront next door. That was La Calita's counterculture paper. We needed it. Have you seen the La Calita Tide? The Sangre de Cristo bulletin? You'd think Harding was still president. Oh, we've got Daisy Flynn. She can be sarcastic sometimes. The rednecks and the Golden Agers hate her. But she can't really say much. The Silver Saddle bastards that own the station won't let her. When it first started, she wrote a column for Underwater. He nodded at the smoked storefront. About twice, they told her give it up or lose your job. She gave it up. How long did the paper last? Dave said. Not long, maybe a year. Then it was going to print what happened to Lester Green. The real story, and that night the place burned up. So the story never came out, Dave said. The guy was a paraplegic Vietnam, Eddie Sushak. Hell, able-bodied. People couldn't fight Orton. Eddie must have figured he was lucky not to have burned up with the press. He split, never heard of him again until they had it on the news. 2 weeks ago maybe. He died some VA hospital up in the Bay Area. But what was the real story? Dave asked. All he told me was he had documentary proof. Blue Glasses went back into the cafe and began clearing the last tables while Dave watched. He was in here for supper, like always, and he said he'd gotten the Xerox from Sacramento, some state office. He was laughing and rubbing his hands, you know. He was going to wipe out Ben Orton with one column of print shit. Who did you tell? Dave asked. The boy swung around and stared at him. What? You don't think that fire was an accident. You think Ben Orton was back of it. You have steady customers. You talk freely to me. I expect you talk freely to them. Somebody had to tell Ben Orton. How else would he know? Jesus, the boy whispered. That must have been quite a document, Dave said. The boy looked sulky and went off with the bin of dirty dishes. When he came out, he said, nobody that hangs out here would go to Ben Orton. Ben Orton was feared, man. It made everybody very nervous when Anita started coming around all the time. When that car of hers would pull up at the curb, there'd be groans, you know. She was into revolution, right? Like a lot of rich kids, we didn't lay back till she went off to join Cesar Chavez, the farm workers, only it didn't last. Her old man dragged her home, then she started coming in with Lester. Did that relax anyone? Dave asked. Like something ticking in a briefcase. By luck, it didn't go off here. It went off when they stopped Lester's Kawasaki and untapped that lid of grass from under the fender. Did she come back after that? What do you think? I think La Calita is a small town, Dave said, and Sangre de Cristo isn't that far off and isn't that much bigger. Ben Orton had to know his daughter was going with a black boy. What suddenly made him interfere? What was it your editor friend next door had? You want me to guess? Blue Glasses asked. I don't see how you can miss, Dave said. The boy drew a breath. Marriage license, he said. But nobody gets married anymore. That's crazy. That's why it fits so well, Dave said. Inside the grape stake fence, the humidity climbed long ribbons of flat green plastic, shiny as new snakes hung in lazy swags across redwood beams and dripped water on boxed trees and shrubs below. The smell of earth was thick. Further on, high yardages of cheesecloth bellied white above flats of seedlings in a wide gravel square, cacti, soaked up sun, and a wheelbarrow. Cropped rose canes stuck thornily out of burlap bundled root clumps. Dave came to a neat, flat-roofed shed building with big new front windows. Planter boxes, fresh and empty, were piled around it. Big, heavy terracotta pots, glazed pots. Garden figurines, inside canaries, sang among hanging ferns. Shelves held bottled plant food and insect killer. Bright colored watering cans, bundles of cotton gardening gloves. New trowels, rakes, hoes hung against the wooden walls. Sacked potting soil and fertilizer banked a counter, but nobody tended the store. The acre grew jungly toward the back. He passed a battered pickup truck without side window glass and found almost hidden by bamboo that rustled high and sunlit in a breeze. He couldn't fill a shingle-sided cottage with deep eaves and a low porch. The door stood open, and inside a slim brown kid in ragged shorts lay on his stomach on the floor using a telephone. Beyond him, a silent color television set showed tear glossy soap opera faces. It was a big set and looked new. That is the most fucked up way to run a business I ever heard of, Ragged Short said and slammed down the receiver. He rolled over and sat up. He was one of those pretty boys who grow old fast. His skin was toughening, his jaw hinges were developing knobs. His eyes had begun to back off under too much brow ridge. They saw Dave. What's the matter? He said. Does something have to be that matter? Dave asked. Around here it does. He stood up. You want some help? See the old man. The old man is across the street at Jack in the Box, drinking Thunderbird out of a paper sack, Dave said. Ragged Shorts muttered, Cabrillon. There aren't any customers, Dave said. I didn't come to buy. I came to talk to Hector Rodriguez. Light figured in the shadowed eyes. What about Cliff Curley? Why, he's in jail. Are you Rodriguez? Who wants to know? He had work-hardened hands. They made fists like clubs. Dave told him who he was. The fist relaxed with an amazed shake of his head and a sad laugh. He left off, blocking the door. Come in, man. You're a hard man to find, you know. He bent for the phone and set it on a low white wrought iron table whose glass top was strewn with gaudy seed catalogs. Come in. Sit down, Mr. Brandstetter. There was a beanbag chair. There were 2 chairs of green canvas slung in iron frames. With the table and television set, they were all the furniture there was. Against a wall where 2 strips of flocked crimson paper had been pasted up lay a big roll of carpet that looked new. Unopened gallon cans of paint waited beside it. In the center of a ceiling where cracks had lately been patched, a bright little crystalline chandelier tinkled in the same impalpable breeze that moved the bamboo. Rodriguez switched off the television set. Mucho calor, he said. Hot. Will you join me in a beer? Sounds good. Thanks. Dave sat in one of the sling chairs. Rodriguez went through an empty dining room where a built-in sideboard had diamond-shaped glass panes. He pushed out of sight through lumberyard bargain louver doors that hadn't been painted. Dave called after him. It had to be television. You heard about me on the news, right? I telephoned Channel 10. Rodriguez appeared with sweaty brown bottles and slender glasses with too much gold filigree. Soon as I could, people came, and the old man is no use. It was perhaps half an hour. You had been there, but you had gone. He handed Dave one of the flossy glasses and filled it. The beer was dark, the label Mexican. He set the bottle on the floor by Dave's chair and folded into the beanbag chair and filled his own glass. He said, I telephoned your company in Los Angeles. It was a hassle getting the number from the operator and all that. You dial, and then he drank from his glass and wiped his mouth with the back of a hand. They didn't know where you were. They said they would call me back. That's why I'm here. He gestured with the glass. Out there is much work to do. Without Cliff, twice as much, but I waited here for them to call, and they did, just now. They still don't know where you are. I'm not sure myself, Dave said. The taste of the beer was dark as its color. What'd you want me for? You don't think Cliff killed them? Rodriguez had to stretch to reach cigarettes on the table. He tossed the pack to Dave. I know Cliff didn't kill him. He was here with you, right? They were Mexican cigarettes. The paper was brown. Dave took one and tossed back the pack. Never left the place all day. We were trying to fix up this house. Rodriguez lit his cigarette with a paper match. We done quite a bit of nights, but you get tired, you know. When we got this nursery, nobody had it for a long time. It took a lot of work to get it nice again, so people would come for many weeks. We slept in sleeping bags on the floor in here. Dave grinned. Under a crystal chandelier? That is what you call the gay lifestyle, Rodriguez said, but his smile didn't amount to much. It didn't matter. We were at peace for a while. What happened to it? Dave used the still lighter on his cigarette. The sweet taste of the smoke took him back to boyhood trips down Baja with his father and lost sun-cracked cantinas behind dusty gas pumps. The unshaven barkeeps would sell cigarettes to kids. He used to hoard them in his blanket roll to smuggle home. He looked at his watch, not for La Hora de Cenar, when he could talk to Ophelia Green, but for 6 o'clock, when he could call the hospital again. It would be a while yet. I saw the City Hall demonstration on film today. Your friend Curley didn't look peaceful. He hates injustice, Rodriguez said. It makes him crazy. I told him to stay out of it. Why we came up here from L.A. was to leave all that activist shit behind. 10 years was enough. It never did no good. It only made him old and poor. He gave it all his time, every penny he could get. Phone ringing at 2 in the morning. There's always some flit in trouble. There always will be till the straits change, and you can't change them. I told Cliff they got to hate somebody. What do they got? Fat-ass wives that whine all the time. Bills and payments, kids that turn out to be junkies and whores and car thieves. They gotta think somebody is more miserable than they are. Or happier, that's worse. Gays can't do nothing right. Come out or hide. It don't change nothing. They'll always hate us. Or envy us. Or pity us. Take your choice. Every penny from where? Dave asked. Huh? Oh, a boutique. Potted plants. Near a big hospital, so it did good. But if I didn't hide half what we took in, put it in a separate bank, Cliff didn't know nothing about, we'd have been out on our nuggless. Then I heard about this place for sale cheap because it was run down. I drove up last July weekend at the parade. It looked great to me, I told Cliff. Either we take it, or it's over between us. Gloomily, Rodriguez dumped the rest of the beer from his bottle into the fancy glass. So, it's all my fault. I should never have. It's someone else's fault, Dave said. What parade? You know, man. Gay Pride Week. Every year to celebrate 1969, when those drag queens threw their purses at the New York police. Cliff was always in that parade, up to his ano. But why celebrate drag queens? They spend their whole life celebrating. They don't do nothing but make the rest of us look bad. Rodriguez shook his head and smiled scornfully. Gay pride? What does that mean, man? 2 strips of flocked wallpaper, Dave said. Yeah, shit. Surprisingly, Rodriguez started to laugh. He had the bucket of paste. The paper was rolled up on the floor, face down. He was on his knees, brushing paste on the back. When they came in, no knock, no nothing, 3 big ones. He jumped up and said, "What is this?" or something, and they said he killed Ben Orton, and Cliff slopped the brush and the paste and painted the first cop, right from the top down. Rodriguez wiped his eyes. Wow, that cop looked funny, like some old movie, you know. One big long stroke of the brush. Getting on their good side from the start, Dave said. Man, there is no way to get on their good side. Leftover laughter jerked the smooth brown chest, made the shoulders jump. Rodriguez hiccuped, but he meant what he said, and he said it grimly. I told them he was here all day with me. Told them, and told them. They don't care. You're going to have to tell them something better. I did. They don't care about that neither. The district attorney, he don't care about it, even dead. This is still Ben Orton's town. Everyone is in his pocket. Judges too. You don't think Cliff can get a fair trial, do you? Mouth clamped in bitterness. Rodriguez reached to twist out his cigarette in an abalone shell ashtray on the table. Daisy Flynn knew Cliff. Interviewed him twice on TV. I told her she don't care. Neither. Puta. Told her what? Dave got out of the canvas chair to use the ashtray. That you know who killed Orton? Why do you care? Rodriguez asked suddenly. It's a matter of $75,000. Money. Rodriguez looked pained. Don't you care about justice? Don't you care about Cliff? I care that he didn't kill Ben Orton. I care that he was set up for it. I'd care to know who set him up because the odds are good that if I knew that, I'd know who killed Ben Orton. If it was his wife or his son, I'd care deeply. Was it his wife or his son? It was Richard T. Noel, Rodriguez said. A Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. And in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.